I am What You Need to Watch my channel. If you like what you're seeing, don't forget you can donate via PayPal. The link will be in the chat section, and I'll put the link in a couple minutes. All right. So, What You Need is here to talk about a topic. I have the title saying, Let's Talk Some Boxing, but really we're going to address a question, which is, can a fighter be better than a fighter he didn't beat? That's going to be the question today. And we're going to get into that a little bit. We'll also talk about some of the current events in boxing, and we'll also talk a little bit about scripture. We'll get into some scripture as well, and we'll talk about that. So we're going to have a good time today. Talk a little about Free Palestine as well. So we're going to touch on a few topics. And anything else you want me to talk about in the chat section, you can just put it in the chat so I can see it for future viewing. Okay. All right. So let's get to it. Let me just put the link in the chat. I'm going to wait for some of you guys to come through. And then we'll pick it up. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. We're as live as we could possibly be. What You Need is in the building. I'm pinning the message at the top. So the message is at the top right now. You guys can see it. Just popped up on the screen. So if you want to donate to my channel, it's right there at the top of the screen. Doing this, I'm streaming from YouTube, so you guys won't be able to come on, but you can always leave your comments in the chat section down below. All right, let's get into it. I'm not going to wait any longer. We're reading from Exodus chapter 20. And we're reading from verse 15 to verse 17. Okay? Short, to the point. So, God is speaking to the children of Israel from Mount Sinai. And he says, do not steal. Do not testify falsely against your neighbor. Do not covet your neighbor's house. Do not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his male or female servant, ox or donkey, or anything else that is your neighbor. The Most High God was speaking to the children of Israel when he said these words. This is part of what is called the Ten Commandments, which, as someone who is Jewish, or if you are someone who respects morality to other human beings, you respect them, you tend to keep most of these commandments. And 3 of those commandments was, do not steal from other people. Do not lie about someone to their detriment, and do not covet someone else's stuff. I just want to briefly cover Free Palestine before I go into the boxing, and we do our discourse. All 3 of those things that I just mentioned, Israel is violating as a country. It is really its government that's doing this, but nonetheless, not necessarily the people in the country, but some people in the country are doing it. Israel, after 1967, surrendered certain lands back to the original countries. Egypt had occupied Gaza. and they relinquished that back to the Palestinians. Israel gave Jordan all of the properties east of Jerusalem. And the West Bank region was also given to Jordan, which was surrendered back to the Palestinians. Israel violated that. The United Nations had declared those areas Palestinian areas, and the other areas were declared Israeli areas. Israel violated this by literally going in, occupying in those areas and settling and building settlements. Top of that, because they had a military army and the Palestinians did not, they brought their military in there to enforce. Today, Palestinians can't even walk down certain streets, can't even use certain highways, can't even use their vehicles in certain parts of Palestine, which is their country. Israel's occupation in that country is literally in contravention to the international laws for the country of Palestine. They're violating international law by doing this to this day. And what happened in Gaza, where most of the Gazans have gone south, and northern Gaza right now is occupied by the IDF, and the IDF has been shooting at Gazans if they try to head north, is just another attempt at occupying the north of Gaza and pushing most of the Gazans to a tight knot in southern Gaza. In other words, they are committing what is known as ethnic cleansing on the Palestinians. In the West Bank that's happening right now, in East Jerusalem, and also in Gaza. Now, all of this is happening simultaneously. I believe over the last month, 300 and something Palestinians died in the West Bank. We do not know the numbers for East Jerusalem. Hold on a second, some asshole is about to come by and make a lot of noise, so let's just hold our hands for a second. I happen to be filming in the front of my house in the living room. Here comes the asshole to make a noise. There's an announcement passing around. It's going to definitely be heard in this video. So I don't want to, interrupt it. I just wait for the asshole to pass and then we can continue. Don't worry. Very soon, they'll pass. So Israel's violating their own, they claim to be a Jewish state. They are not, but they claim to be a Jewish state. And they are violating the very rules that the Lord God, the Most High, had given unto them. They violate their own 10 commandments. All right, hold on a second again. I'm sorry about this, but we have to wait a little bit. It's really fucked up, dude, because these people just pull out a clear blue sky and just start doing shit. Nothing's really planned in my country. People just do things on the fly. It could be a good thing or a bad thing. All right, let's keep it moving. I'm gonna have to compete with the noise in the background. You guys will have to forgive me for that. So, anyways, this is what's up. What's the solution to the problem? There are several ways to approach this, and I want to give some solutions that I just thought I would say. But suffice it to say that these are not the only way. There may be other solutions. There are several different ways. One of the ways you can solve this problem is, one, enforce the law. The law of the boundaries for Israel are clear. East Jerusalem is Palestine. The West Bank is Palestine. And Gaza Strip is Palestine. And I believe somewhere in the Negev region there's some Palestine as well. Restore those areas to Palestine. The settlers can either be part of Palestine or they can evacuate and move back into Israel. And how is this done? Because there's Israeli military presence there. Well, they did evacuate Gaza, even though some Jews stay there with their families, whatever. But they did evacuate Gaza. So here's what they need to do. They simply need to, one, have the United Nations peacekeeping force go into Israel. They need to protect the airspace of Israel, and they need to protect the ground space, not of Israel, sorry, of Palestine. They will be the protection because Palestine has no military, it has no airport. It does have a government. It's called the PLO, also known as the PLA now. And there's a subset of that government which governs Gaza, which is known as Hamas. They also not only have a government, but they also have a flag. They have an anthem. They have everything. So this was already a resolution that was supposed to pass in the United Nations. Unofficially, officially, they are accepted by most nations of the world as a nation, and they actually have a seat in the United Nations, but they need to be declared a state. By Palestine being declared a state, it prevents Israel from just occupying and just doing whatever they want. They're not supposed to do this, but they do it because, one, the status of Israel is not recognized by them, nor by the United States of America, nor by certain other specific countries. So it's almost like a no man's land situation where Israel takes advantage of that, even though they're already declared a state, but not recognized by everyone. So Israel just goes into the state illegally, as the United Nations has pronounced, illegally, and takes over as if it's its state. And the argument that Israel gives is, well, we won the war, so we can go here. And that's not true. Second, the United Nations has to bring relief, humanitarian relief and supplies, not just to Gaza, but also to the West Bank and also to East Jerusalem. These things need to happen. So if they're going to declare Palestine a state, which they should do, to prevent this from further happening and from loss of life and exploitation, they need to do it now. Press the United Nations, press the Security Council, press the different arms of the United Nations, whether it's humanitarian relief, WHO, whatever, press them to ensure that Palestine is a state recognized by the world. Now, if certain nations want to be exempt from it being a state, that's their problem. The next thing the United Nations needs to have, somebody has to have balls to do this, but it's better the United Nations goes inside of Palestine than, say, a given country like Turkey or like Lebanon with Hezbollah. Why? Because the United Nations is already an official establishment, and it was built for all countries that agree on one thing to then make movements in a coordinated fashion. So what I mean by this is have the peacekeeping forces go. They'll be the military protection for the Palestinians, so Hamas won't have to be doing any sort of military operations outside of it. They could still do their military operations, but they don't have to do terror attacks and all those things, because now the state is actually protected by peacekeeping force. That's what they need to do, and have all of Israel's military out of there. It's not your responsibility, it's the responsibility of the United Nations. So the United Nations should bring a peacekeeping force into Gaza, into the West Bank, and into East Jerusalem and Negev. And they need to also remove, because the IDF is not necessary anymore, remove the IDF's presence from there so that now the people can get proper treatment. You bring in the WHO, you bring in the Humanitarian Amnesty International, the whole set of groups. They can go on the ground now and take care of the people. The settlers that are in the area will have to be escorted out via the IDF, and they maybe have to be relocated unless they are willing to have Palestinian citizenship. And even if they do have Palestinian citizenship, the peacekeeping force needs to ensure that they do not violate and have any crimes against humanity, because they may be armed, and they cannot afford to be armed. They'll have to disarm them. If you're gonna do things here, you're gonna have to abide by certain rules. But they don't want any hostilities. They want peace. So that's up to the settlers. But most of the settlers will be moved back into Israel, and that could be a problem because the settlers are very aggressive. They're very hostile, generally speaking. So that could be an issue with the United Nations. But if the this will have to depend on the Prime Minister Netanyahu or whoever is the Prime Minister of Israel, if they're willing to accept these things. If they're not willing to accept these things, let me explain what will happen. The United Nations military consists and can be funded by China, Russia, and any other interested party. Okay, and usually it was funded by the United States. The UN was highly dependent on the United States, but right now the UN needs to break ties with the United States and dependency, and it needs to focus on, and that's why the United States has so much say and veto power. But it needs to focus on, if it needs to depend on China, if it depends on Russia, if it depends on the countries surrounding, those countries shouldn't go in there. They can send military presence in there under the banner of the United Nations. So Russia can bring some of its troops in there, Turkey, etc., etc., etc. So you can have this United Nations deal under the United Nations banner, but they are really forces from different countries of the United Nations. Who have gotten some training under the United Nations, obviously. So they would be sent in to do the job at hand. And that's how it could be done, so that no one nation needs to be overexerting itself. Everybody pitches in a little bit of money to the cause, and then they have and anything happens, there's really, the United Nations is there as a deterrent. Just like how America's on the coastline as a deterrent for the Arab countries, so the Arab countries can use the United Nations as a deterrent. Even NATO, get NATO on board there. Now, because of the pressure and presence on the ground, most of the people on the ground, that is, we the people of the world, we're putting pressure on our governments. And if our governments do not do anything about Palestine, they will not come back to power. We're going to make sure that they don't get voted back again. Joe Biden, his time's over. He's not going to get voted back again. You can forget about that. And Donald Trump, if he's favoring Netanyahu, he's not going back either. So Donald Trump's out. John Kennedy, he's out. I'm sorry, Robert Kennedy, he's out because he's talking about dependency on Israel, and Biden's out. So these guys are not going. We're not even going to try and talk about it. Bernie Sanders is one of those guys we might look at. He did move kind of late though, Bernie. We have Cornel West, we have the Squad, and we got some other independents who their view on Palestine is for it to be free. Those people are the people we're looking at. We're not electing nobody. Not Trump, not Biden. We're not electing those guys because they don't show that they have humanity. And people should have reacted so much faster. The action should have been taken on this so quickly. We all know this was a genocide that was happening, and also ethnic cleansing. And they need to act on it very quickly. They have not acted on it quickly at all. And we'll see if the diplomats scratch their feet. We'll understand. We'll figure out if the UN is worth it or if it's just shit, and we should just forget about it, because they've had more than enough time. They've had over a month to assess the situation and take action. So if they're not able to take action, we the people of the world will take action, and we will put money towards and fund. Now, here's the other thing. Everything in the world requires money. Wars require money. What's happening in the Ukraine? The Ukraine is losing the war to Russia because they're not getting enough financing. They don't have enough tools. They don't have enough weapons. Everything needs money. The solution to the war in Ukraine is so simple, but yet complicated in the sense that every country has interest. But what the countries have to do, if you're frowning on the war in Ukraine and what Russia's doing by violating the sovereignty, why are you allowing Russia to do business as usual? Cut ties with them. Cut diplomatic ties. Cut financial ties to them. Boycott everything they have. If they have no money to continue, they're not going to continue. You want to see Vladimir Putin change his mind on a drop of a dime? China, stop working with Russia. All countries of the world, including Europe and America, stop doing business. You're going to halt, or we're going to do just like what they're doing. We're going to have a humanitarian pause in all commerce with Russia until they comply to international law. I bet you, I guarantee you, the next day, Mr. Putin's pulling his troops out of Ukraine. Okay? Because everything needs money to keep on going. And if you cut diplomatic ties, you have to do drastic things. That's what these diplomats don't understand, and they're not willing to do that because they're afraid. Oh well, we'll mess up our ties. We'll mess up this. We'll mess up that. No, you won't mess up squat. You just take a stance, like South Africa has done. Shout out to whoever this is in the chat. KP from Casey. Man, we were wrong about Andre. Oh yeah. He was too. He wasn't ready. It wasn't his power. His power was good, but it's just he couldn't take a shot. He couldn't take a shot. And it's all right. It's cool. He's still a very good fighter. That's the thing with me. I don't abandon fighters. You know what I mean? We're going to get into the boxing. I know you guys. Well, so the possible solution is through the United Nations. That is one solution. There are several solutions. I just gave you one. I will give you another solution. But the thing about it is, since 1967, these laws and resolutions by the United Nations have not been executed. And that's the reason we have the problem right now in the Middle East. If they just followed what they were executing, this wouldn't even be a problem. It wouldn't even be an Oslo Accords. You know, none of that would have happened. This would have been taken care of, and then the Palestinians would have been in Palestine, the Israelis would have been in Israel, and that would have been that. All right, so anyway, that's the problem. Palestine is not recognized globally by everybody in the globe as a nation. And the other thing that's very important is Palestine has to be continuous. You can't have the Palestinians passing through Israeli territory. That's a no-no. So the Palestine must be continuous and connected to each settlement, everybody, and it will be one nation. Okay? Now some people say, well, Hamas wants to kill the Israelis, you want to wipe out them, and well, Hamas, let me break this down to you guys. I'm not trying to be sympathetic to Hamas. I don't really care about Hamas like that, but Hamas, basically, they say certain things in their charter, right? They say, oh, get rid of the Israeli state and blah, 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 blah. But the truth be told, Hamas hasn't acted on everything they've said in their charter. In fact, they went into elections. Their charters, they don't do elections, okay? But they became, just like the PLO. PLO was the same thing, death to Israel, right? That's what they started off saying. But they changed their tune over time, and now the PLO, aka the PLA, Fatah, they're actually nonviolent. They use very diplomatic means because they realize that's the more effective way to go. So same thing with Hamas. Hamas will, mellow out. Once Hamas is no longer needing to freedom fight or get the world's attention, they'll stop. It's just, they're a military arm. So part of Hamas could become a military arm or integrate into the military. Because they're pretty good at it as a military. I gotta give them that. They have small amounts of resources, even though they get like billions of dollars. When you have an army, that's not much money. Okay, they do get billions of dollars though, from different places, from the Brotherhood, so from Turkey, from Iran. They were actually getting money from Prime Minister Netanyahu, who was Israel. He was actually sending them money, which is part of his corruption charges. He wanted to try and keep, Gaza and the West Bank separate, It's part of his strategy. And right now he's implementing his strategy, his third part of his strategy, and so on. But suffice it to say, I got a couple of things I want to say, but this topic is so broad, it's so vast. It's hard to really cover everything, but what I'm focusing on here is the way forward. So Hamas will more than likely integrate into it and become a political entity, and people will forget that they were a terrorist organization and where their roots came from. We say terrorist organization, by the way, for Israelis, right? The Israelis will look at them as, oh man, you're a terror organization because, bring terror on us, right? But really they're freedom fighters. They're the resistance, okay? And they have to do things to get attention. They're not really looking to kill people, rape people, and all that shit that they say. No, they generally carry out military operations every time you look at them. They're not into suicide missions either. And while they sort of passionately say that, they want to get rid of Israel as a state, really what they're talking about is the apartheid state of Israel. And yes, to a very high extent, they speak like that. But then there's the Likud party as well, Likud party of Israel, that's just equally as genocidal. They we want every single Palestinian to die. We want Hamas gone. We want everybody gone, right? So on both sides, there's sort of a mutual hate. But I think it's because, again, they don't really realize that they can gel with each other. and there's a bit of fear, you know, and they're trying to, assert themselves on each other. But I think Hamas will mellow out once Palestine becomes a state. Then they don't have nothing to fight for, so they're going to get into the diplomatic arm. There'll still be military arms of Hamas. Hezbollah and Hamas, they work kind of hand in hand as co people fighting for a revolution, right? And if you guys ever check out Rebel Moon, which will be on Netflix, you get more insight. Think of Star Trek or Star Wars. Star Wars, not Star Trek. Star Wars. Star Wars Rebels even. And you see rebels sabotage things and stuff to try and get an edge so they can free the people. So that's the whole point behind Hamas, Castro, Chavez, who was in Venezuela. They were just trying to push back against the system that was oppressing the people and exploiting them. And this is just what Hamas is. That's all they really are. Some people think of them as terrorists. I don't know when I started off, I was like, fuck Hamas, right? But as I look at it now, I kind of look at it from a perspective of they're trying their best the way how they know to do things. They're getting funded by China, Iran, Turkey, the surrounding regional countries. China's not too far away. So, the eastern countries, maybe even Russia as at some point giving them arms or whatever. I know Turkey for a fact gave them arms because the Turkish prime minister came out and said that rifle, when Netanyahu was talking to Elon Musk recently, he said that rifle, Hamas don't use that kind of weaponry, right? So Turkey basically let everybody know, okay, well, we have something to do with that. How could we know that, right? So Turkey, supplies them, Syria, etc. Now, the whole point anyway is this, right? However you look at it. The point is, Palestine needs to be legitimate. One, the people need to be treated with respect and dignity. They should be able to self-actualize how their country is run. Meaning, the sooner that country can be stable, the sooner you can have elections, and then we could see who is going to be running, who's going to be doing things there. That's the important thing. Also, they'll have to do a prisoner release. Of course, if you're not occupying the territory, you need to release all the people back into the territory and just go back to your territory and chill. You know what I mean? The Israelis are nice people. I know because I have relationships with some of them. I am friends with some of them online on YouTube. They're really awesome people, generally speaking. But the government can kind of well up the people into a state of panic because they don't know if there's going to be an intifada with suicide bombers. They don't know what could happen next. So they're always in a situation where they're never relaxed. Where they shouldn't be, because a lot of people surrounding them are like their brothers and sisters. They're like family there, you know what I mean? Anyways, I know this is a boxing channel, so I just wanted to say, so the prisoner release, they need to release these prisoners. They're not prisoners, they're really hostages, because most of them, they're in there with trump up charges, being mistreated, and it's not cool. And you see how Hamas treat the other hostages. Of course, they couldn't get the food that they needed, but they had them in a safe place. Most of them were relatively healthy. And you can see how Hamas apparently didn't mistreat these people like how the IDF would mistreat little kids, So Hamas is showing civility. Hamas, at least is showing. I'm not saying I can't vouch for them. I'm not going to vouch for them, okay? But I'm saying they show a certain civility. They're painting a certain picture to the Western world and to the world at large that, all this stuff that, that people were saying about us, we're not really that way, And of course, people bring up the graphic images of the German Israeli girl who's dead inside of the truck in the back of Hamas, who's racing to a hospital. The people who were trying to throw stones, Hamas was shooing them away. I don't know if people paid attention to that because, Palestine's like a melee at times, right? And then you have different kinds of people. You have, really productive people in there. And then you have some people who are not productive. So you have to understand all of this is going on when you're watching these videos. And, a lot of people just don't understand that. They don't understand that, so it is what it is. But if you've been to impoverished area or impoverished country, you kind of get it. You kind of get what's going on. You understand what's up. So anyway, let's get into the boxing, right? Let's get into the boxing. Okay. So, the subject, the question is, can a boxer be better? Can a boxer be better? Can a boxer be better than a fighter or a boxer who has beaten him? That's the question out there. I want to hear your views on that, and then we'll go into some other stuff as time will allow us. Can a boxer be better than a fighter he has never beaten? He's faced, but he's never beaten. Because I put this up. I put this up on Facebook. I didn't put it up on Twitter. I put it up on Facebook, and I wanted to hear what you guys' opinion on that is. Can a boxer be better than a fighter he has never beaten? He faced, but he never beaten. So I want to hear your opinion on that, and then I'm going to give my opinion on it. But it's going to be based on facts. Okay. Anybody? I saw KP from KC, but he's gone. Anybody who wants to throw to give their suggestion on this? KP from KC said, man, we were wrong about Andre. All right, let's get into it. So, the answer to that question is very simple. No, a boxer cannot be better than a fighter that has beaten him, and he has never beaten that fighter in a pro fight. You can't be better than somebody who beat you. You can't. All right? That's why we fight fights, so we can know who's the best, right? Who's the best? The best versus the best. All right? One fighter beats the other fighter, okay? And that fighter never gets an opportunity again to rematch that fighter. Then the one that beats the fighter, he's better than that fighter. That's how it's settled. That's how it's settled. Now, barring, there are some caveats, like if the fighter that won cheated, if it was a robbery, okay, that's different. If it was a draw, then he's not better than the other. You know, it's a draw, right? Or close fight, and you need to decide in a trilogy or something, or series of fights. That's different. Or one fighter stops another fighter, but they have a rematch clause, so the fighter rematches the other fighter, and the other fighter stops the other fighter. Now we're kind of 1 for 1, so they might do a best of 3, you know, and see who really comes out the winner there, and then that's the best fighter. You know, it's kind of like that. In other words, boxing's a doing sport. So the simple answer to that question is no. A fighter who has lost to another fighter and never got and has never beaten that fighter, whether they go on to fight them multiple times or whatever, if he's lost to that fighter, or he's lost a series of fights to that fighter, he's not better than the fighter. That's just the way it goes. Now, having said that, a lot of times people say, you know, I remember, what's the guy's name? I can't even remember what his name is right now. A guy from Britain or from UK. He tried to make an argument with me about Muhammad Ali and Ken Norton or something like that, right? And he was saying, you know, Ken Norton beat Muhammad Ali. So are you saying that Ken Norton was better than Muhammad Ali? On that night, of course, Ken Norton was better than Muhammad Ali, but in the end, Muhammad Ali beat Ken Norton, right? In the rematch, whether you believe it or not. There were 2 close fights. So Ken Norton's name became a name because he beat Muhammad Ali. He beat some other fighters, but it was mostly because he beat Muhammad Ali, right? So the point is that people say, well, Muhammad Ali was better than Ken Norton. Yeah, but Muhammad Ali beat Ken Norton. He actually beat Ken Norton. Ken Norton beat him, but he also beat Ken Norton. You see what I'm saying? Now, if you haven't even gotten a win against a fighter, or you lost a series to a fighter, you can't say that you're better than that fighter. What you can say is you're on par with that fighter. Maybe if all the fights are always close and it's a seesaw battle, you could say maybe you're on par with that fighter. But you can't say you're better than that fighter. Get what I'm saying? Because boxing's about the actual fights. Boxing's not a talking sport as much as we fans like to talk about it. It's a doing sport. It's what you do that you're judged on as a boxer. That goes down on record and in history. And of course, if you want to go watch the fights, you can watch the fights and assess them for yourself as a fan. But suffice it to say, it's what you do. You cannot be judged on what you didn't do. So if you didn't beat a fighter, you can't be better than that fighter. You just can't. You can have a better career than the fighter. You might even beat better fighters than that fighter, meaning those fighters beat that fighter. But you cannot say that you personally are better than that fighter because you didn't beat him. And the whole point behind boxing, to know who's better, is you have to fight each other. And when you do, whoever wins is better. What do you want to say? Better on the night? Better on the... So one guy was saying to me, well, that person was better on the night. He wasn't better all time. I said, well, if you've beaten somebody once and they never face you again, what can we go off of? We could only go off of that one time. You get it? Because it's about what you do in boxing. It's not about, speculating and hypotheticals. It's no longer that. So, as you can see on the cover there, Roy Jones Jr., who's a great fighter, great boxer, never beat Antonio Tarver. In fact, oh yes, he did beat him once. He beat him once. He did beat him once, the first fight. It was close, but he beat him once. But Antonio Tarver dropped him in the second fight and knocked him out, stopped him. And in the third fight, Antonio Tarver also beat him. So Tarver won that series 2-1. Tarver gets the bragging rights that he's better than Roy Jones Jr. because he won the series. Get it? Bernard Hopkins versus Roy Jones Jr. Roy Jones Jr. beat Bernard Hopkins the first fight, but the second fight, the rematch, Bernard Hopkins beat Roy Jones Jr. Roy Jones Jr. cannot claim that he's better than Bernard Hopkins. He could say he's on the level of Bernard Hopkins. We can't say he's better. He had a better career than Bernard Hopkins. We could argue that. I don't know if that's true. But what I do know is Roy Jones Jr. is not better than Bernard Hopkins. Can't say that. He did get a win over Bernard Hopkins, but Bernard Hopkins also got a win over him. So it's like even keel. They're probably on the same level, but they can't say they're better than each other unless they settle it with a tiebreaker. Get what I'm saying? That's why we have trilogies. That's why we have series of fights. Pacquiao and Marquez, Eric Morales and Antonio Barrera, Sugar Ray Robinson and Jake LaMotta, Sugar Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran. That's why we have the trilogies. So a lot of times, and that's why real boxers and professional boxers, they don't do hypotheticals. They don't do what this guy at this era faced that guy, because it don't make no sense to them because they're not actually going to fight. So what who cares? It's your imagination. And that's why people say it's up to your imagination. They call fantasy fights. It doesn't matter because they won't fight. But when fighters have fought, I cannot say as a fighter, let's say I fight an ex-boxer or another fighter or whatever. I can't say that I'm better than that fighter and I lost to them. And I never beat them. Never ever beat them. I can't say that. And people like to say, well, you had more skills, maybe you were a more technical boxer. Maybe, but you're not better. Now I can even have a better career than that fighter. But that doesn't make me a better than that fighter. That fighter beat me, and I never beat that fighter. So that I cannot be better than that fighter. And people say, well, styles make fights. That has nothing to do with it. Whether styles make fights or not, I beat that fighter. Or the fighter beat me. So I can't say I'm better than that fighter because I never beat him. To be better, you have to beat the person. You have to beat the man to beat a man. And you have to beat the fighters to say I'm the best. Right? Whether it's a style matchup or not. So that's the argument. Okay? Boxing's a doing sport, so it's what you do, it's not what you say. Like, take for instance, Shakur Stevenson. We were putting him high up on this pedestal, right? We had him, well, some of you, not me, but some of you had him elevated above Tank and above Devin and above, who else was there at the time? I think it was Ryan and even Lomachenko. And then he goes and he struggles with De Los Santos. He struggles with De Los Santos. Now all of a sudden, everybody's like, wow, he's not really all of that. Well, you're supposed to go with the actual fights to see. I told y'all he wasn't proven at lightweight, so we don't know. You can't put him. That's why I do my ranking system the way I do. Devin Haney is not going to be ranked at 140 as a top 140 pounder because he hasn't fought a 140 pound fight. We don't know how he's going to react. We assume, and I'm predicting, that he'll beat Regis Prograis, but my prediction really isn't anything until we see those two rumble. And after it's history, we'll know for a fact. But until then, we don't know. Right? Who's better? We'll find out in the ring. That's why we watch the fights. Right? So that's the point I'm trying to make. A lot of you guys, there are two things fans do a lot. We make excuses for fighters. Oh, this guy was over the age and he wasn't in his prime. And that's excuses. If the guy signed on the dotted line to fight, okay, then it's now on him. Can't say he's too old because he signed it. And people will say, well, he was a shell of himself and blah, blah, blah. But he signed the fight. So it doesn't really matter anymore. That was his choice. Might have been a bad one, but it was his choice. He chose to fight. And that's the important thing you have to understand. Once people sign an agreement, then you can't make excuses for them, really. You might be able to say, well, okay, but he was past his, best years. So what? He signed to fight. That's the important thing. Okay? So, and regardless, the other guy was better if he beat him. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't make a difference. The other guy proved he was better. They got in the ring, and this is what happened. Whether or not he's too old or not doesn't make a difference. The better man won, and the better man was the one who beat him. And that's all you have to remember. Boxing's that simple. Yes, you can give explanations for things, but you can't make excuses for things. People like to talk about prime. Prime primarily is physical prime, where you can use all your abilities and all your skills, and you're at your peak, right? Mostly it's physical. Okay? When you get older, your reaction time slows down, you have injuries and all of that stuff. So the wear and tear on you is going to slow you down. But we've seen really old guys like Bernard Hopkins, Archie Moore, Juan Manuel Marquez, Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, even Sugar Ray Robinson. They fought for a very long time. Sugar Ray Robinson fought into his 40s. Manny Pacquiao fought into his 40s. Okay? He was 42 when he retired. So all I'm saying to you guys is that these are excuses we make to make sense of the reality. Shout out to Koj. What up, my guy? Cruising through. Oh, yeah, my brother. I spoke about the Palestinian thing already. The solution. We can run it back. Thanks for the support, my brother. I have two channels. So this is one of them. This is my boxing channel. And then the other channel is where we do entertainment. We talk about Rebel Moon. Because I'm really excited for Rebel Moon, by the way. Koj. Shout out to Lord Koj. My brother with a big heart. Lord Koj, I have a lot of respect for Lord Koj. And if you guys can check out his channel, it's really cool. He does all kinds of things. He does gaming. He does all these fun events. And he's very supportive. He's got a big heart. He's a very supportive guy. And you can check his channel also for his background, his history, and everything, because you guys will be blown away. He's a wonderful person. Shout out for coming through, Koj. Yeah, so this is my boxing channel. You know what I'm saying? And we do boxing, but we cover scripture as well as we cover, sometimes current events like what is happening in the world right now. So, we are really, I tried my best. I spend most of my day now campaigning for Free Palestine because I really believe it's something worth the while. Why? We keep getting dominated. Why says Hopkins had a better career than Roy. You can be better than a fighter, but that fighter has a better career. Exactly. Right? The point I'm saying is you are better based on what you do in the ring, but that doesn't mean that you are better career-wise, right? You may not have as great a career as another fighter. Take Roberto Duran, right? One guy was talking about how what's the guy's name? Several guys beat Roberto Duran, right? Several guys beat more in the latter end of his career, right? They got wins over Roberto. Roberto couldn't beat them, right? But career-wise, Roberto Duran had an incredible career. Incredible. Something these other guys didn't do. Now, the better man that won the fight doesn't necessarily mean that he had the better career. You know what I'm saying? And that's something we just need to separate so that we don't make excuses for fighters. We understand the greatest of a fighter and we put the greatest of a fighter in the right context. Some of the popular fights that happened recently, we had Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence. Errol Spence will be having a rematch against Terrence Crawford, hopefully to get a get back on him. I don't know if he can, but But the point is, why I say this is because fighters need to understand if you didn't beat a fighter and you move on to some other fighter, you still didn't beat that fighter. Because a lot of fighters today, particularly, they're not really hungry for an immediate rematch. I only see like rare exceptions like Anthony Joshua, who else? Errol Spence right now want to get back immediately. That's a tendency now. I see a lot of boxers trying to go on to other more lucrative things. I've seen Amir Khan doing something like that. No shout out to Amir Khan. Where I've even seen like a Canelo. Canelo didn't go on rematch Bivol. He should have rematched Bivol to show that he could beat him. You have to be able to show that you're the better guy. That's what boxing's about. So if you can't show that, then I can say Bivol a better boxer than Canelo. Yeah, Canelo got all these accolades, but Bivol beat him. And he never came back to fight Bivol, and he never beat Bivol. Get what I'm saying? So that's where the bragging rights is, oh yeah, I beat this guy. I got the bragging rights on that. I beat him. That's what boxing's about. So people need to understand that. I'm not saying that Canelo doesn't have a hell of a career. Canelo's an incredible fighter, okay? But there are two fighters that beat him, right? There's Floyd and then there's Bivol. And that's a rare club. And just off of that, some people get into the Boxing Hall of Fame because they get into it because they beat such a tremendous fighter that it propels them. They'll have to do some other things, of course, but it propels them into the Boxing Hall of Fame because they're the only fighter that beat this fighter, or they're a select group of fighters that beat this fighter. You know what I'm saying? That's what propels sometimes people into a Boxing Hall of Fame. Yeah, they may do other great things. They might beat it, but nobody at that caliber of that kind of fighter. Like they might lose all the other high A level fighters, but when it comes to that caliber fighter, they beat that fighter. So that's what I'm trying to get people to understand, because in the traditional boxing atmosphere, it's usually taught that the better fighter, even if he loses to, he's never beaten a fighter that beat him all the time, that he is still better than that fighter or greater than that fighter. And that's not how it works. Yes, you may have a better or greater career, but you got to get your get back. You got to get your get back. You got to show people that you're the best. You can't tell people you're the best. In boxing, it's not about telling. It's about showing. All right? Shout out to Wah, man. Yeah, you can be better than a fighter, but that fighter has a better career. Skill don't win fights. Being the better fighter in total does. Yes, sir. That's correct. Because remember, it's not just skill. It's also about game plan, strategy. How prepared are you for this fighter? You may be able to study the fighter, know what he does very well, and prepare appropriately for that, and so win the fight. You may not have all the big set of skill in the world, but the skill that you have might be sufficient to overcome that fighter with a proper game plan. So yes, correct. This is great. Boxing is a fantastic sport. Oh, it's an incredible sport. I agree. Fighting's a lot going on, not just skill. That's true. Why we keep getting dominated, says Timothy Bradley's one of them. Beat Manny. He shouldn't have, but Manny's wins secured him. Yeah. Well, he's gone into the Boxing Hall of Fame, but Timothy Bradley also fought many a great fighter. He fought Juan Manuel Marquez and beat Juan Manuel Marquez, who's a Hall of Famer himself. He beat Manny Pacquiao, who was a Hall of Famer himself, and he also beat several really good fighters like Jesse Vargas. Actually, let me look him up right now. Because Timothy Bradley is a fantastic fighter. A lot of people don't realize he beat the English dude. I forgot what his name is. The switch hitter, the guy who could fight you on either stance. Timothy Bradley was a hell of a fighter. Hell of a fighter. Just now I'll tell you who it is. Oh yeah, there he is. Yeah, Timothy Bradley beat Junior Witter. For those of you who are British, y'all know who Junior Witter is, and he was a skilled fighter. Y'all know about Prince Naseem Hamed. Well, Junior Witter was a skilled fighter who could fight from orthodox or southpaw. He could fight with either hand. He could go into either stance. He also beat Timothy Bradley beat the very difficult to beat Miguel Vasquez. Only two people at the time beat Miguel Vasquez. That was Canelo Alvarez and Timothy Bradley. Okay, Timothy Bradley is just an incredible fighter. Miguel Vasquez, by the way, was a world champion at lightweight. Junior Witter was a world champion at super lightweight. Edner Cherry was a lightweight world champion. He beat Edner Cherry. He also beat Kendall Holt. Listen, y'all go watch Timothy Bradley versus Kendall Holt. I swear to you. Kendall Holt hit him with a left hook from hell. It knocked Timothy Bradley clean off his feet. He was in the air. He was airbound, hit the ground. And this ninja got back up from that immediately and began fighting again. Timothy Bradley got a hell of a chin. Hell of a chin. Kendall Holt swept him off the ground with that left hook. And Kendall Holt is known for his left hooks, okay? It was a unification bout. Super lightweight, WBO, I believe it was WBO, WBA, WBO, WBC title they were fighting for. And Timothy Bradley was the WBC champion, and Kendall Holt was the WBO super lightweight champion. And boy, that was a hell of a fight. You guys need to see it. Kendall Holt dropped him twice in that fight. Timothy Bradley won it because he was the guy pushing the action. He was tenacious. And then the other thing about Timothy Bradley, he never really had one hitter quitter power. Against Manny Pacquiao in the second fight, he lifted Manny Pacquiao off the ground with a right hand, but that was incredible. But he's not really known as a power puncher, but this tenacity and just his activity rate and just the way how he fights. And of course, he can fight different ways, So it's, it's interesting that you made that comment there. Why we keep on getting dominated? Why? Because, incredible fighter, Timothy Bradley. And that win over Manny Pacquiao did plateau him, but he did also fight some really good fighters like Nate Campbell, Lamont Peterson. He actually beat down Lamont Peterson, gave Lamont Peterson his first loss of his career. Y'all who know Lamont Peterson is a tough guy. Coach says, I gotta get back to work, lunch break over, man. I dig this content. I know your stuff. Much love, brother. Yes, Lord Coach, man, I'll catch you later. I'll catch you later on your channel. I gotta come true. We gotta talk Rebel Moon. I hope you guys do a watch-a-thon. We need to do a watch-a-thon of Rebel Moon. That would be tight. I really want to, Rebel Moon, y'all. Rebel Moon. There's some hype for Rebel Moon from our community. We are like the Restore the Snyderverse community, and we like Zack Snyder. So we're going to be watching Rebel Moon come December 22nd. You know what I'm saying? Rebel Moon all day, baby. The resistance, baby. Yeah. So shout out to Lord Kojay, just leaving the building there. Yeah, Lamont Peterson, he beat that dude. And then he beat Devin Alexander to get another unification. I think he was fighting for he had the WBO title. Devin Alexander was the no, I think, he was champion. I think he got stripped or something, and Devin Alexander had the WBO title. But anyway, the fight ended on a technical decision. Timothy Bradley won. Timothy Bradley always uses his head, though. He headbutt Devin Alexander a couple times. It was Orthodox versus Southpaw. Then he beat Joel Casamigor. Now, Joel Casamigor was a million years old, but it didn't really matter. Timothy Bradley stopped him in the 8th round. You know what I'm saying? So all of these guys, then he brought Ruslan Provodnikov. All these guys I'm just mentioning, by the way, were world champions. That's what's so crazy about Timothy Bradley. Like, you look at the guys he kept on facing was at the top level. They either were world champions or they became future world champions. That's what Timothy Bradley fought. So Ruslan Provodnikov, he fought a fight in which Ruslan dropped him twice in that fight. And we swear to God, we thought Timothy Bradley was dead. That's how bad Ruslan, he slumped him one time. Timothy Bradley got back up and was fighting even though he probably was unconscious. It was a hell of a fight. And Timothy Bradley definitely got some brain damage from there. So y'all gonna have to accuse Timothy Bradley when he sees some stupid stuff? From that Ruslan fight. Anyways, yeah, then Timothy Bradley fought Juan Manuel Marquez, and he got a split decision win over him. He dropped Marquez, I think, late in the fight. He boxed in that fight, though. He didn't bang. And then he also fought Jesse Vargas and Brandon Rios. He stopped Brandon Rios with a body shot. Teddy Atlas was the one that was coaching him. I remember all of this stuff. Timothy Bradley got a hell of a career. And by the way, every single person I just mentioned was a world champion. His resume is ridiculous, I'm telling you. Ridiculous resume. Only world champions this man fought, except for Diego Chavez, who was a very good fighter. He was an interim champion once, but not really a world champion. Everybody else was a world champion. Luis Abrego wasn't a world champion, but he was a good fighter. He was more of a welterweight. But everybody else I just mentioned was a world champion. That's why Timothy Bradley's in the Boxing Hall of Fame, okay? For those of you who don't know. Yeah, Pacquiao carried it over the edge, and he had a trilogy with Pacquiao. You know what I mean? But, yeah, Bradley, you know. And, of course, Pacquiao's the better fighter because he won the trilogy, okay? Pacquiao's a better fighter between Pacquiao and Marquez. Even though Marquez had the last laugh, you know, they kind of are neck and neck. Even that fight was swinging, you know. Marquez dropped him, Pacquiao dropped Marquez dropped Pacquiao, or knocked out Pacquiao, right? So, you know, Marquez and Pacquiao always be an exciting fight because they're kind of like neck and neck all the time, you know? Pacquiao got more than the odds, but that don't mean, you know, Pacquiao got 2 out of the 4 fights. It was a draw for the first one. Basically, this is what I think, right? When you talk about Marquez versus Pacquiao, it's mostly a draw, knockout. Right? That's how I think of it. You know, even though on the scorecards, Pacquiao kind of edged it out. But really, if there wasn't a knockout, that was heading to another draw. You know? Because once one knocked down one, the other one would knock down one. But it just so happened Marquez knocked Pacquiao into the next century with the last knockdown in round 6, so the fight didn't continue. But really and truly, they're like this, you know? So, you know, that was a perfect dance partner for Manny Pacquiao, Marlon Marquez. Yeah. So all I'm saying is that, and I'm glad you guys agree, that the old school was that, you know, this fighter's better than that fighter, even though he lost to that fighter multiple times, never even beat the fighter. He's better than a fighter. You can't say that. But what you can say is that fighter's body of work is greater than this fighter's body of work. Or this fighter is esteemed by people higher than that fighter is esteemed. Take, for instance, Mike Tyson. Evander Holyfield beat Mike Tyson how many times? Twice, right? He beat him twice. But to this day, Evander Holyfield is not seen. What just happened there? Why is this clear? Why is everything clear? The hell? Why did all my comments just clear? It just suddenly cleared. What the hell? Yeah, but Evander Holyfield is not seen as great as Mike Tyson. Isn't that crazy? I don't know what just happened there, folks. Somebody was making a comment and then everything just got deleted, and I don't know why. Hold on a second. Not quite sure what just happened there. Okay. I'm not quite sure what the hell. What is this? Live. Okay, we're here. Oh, there we go. Okay. Why we keep getting dominated says Snyder ruined DC. I'm a current film student getting my master's, so that Ruslan fight. Going into the Navy Federal. See y'all later. Okay, man. So Wow says see you later. Snyder did not ruin DC, bro. I don't know who told you that, but I disagree with that. I disagree so horribly. It's not funny. But that is the narrative. People like to go with narratives, I guess. Yeah. Well, that's basically it. Shout out to everybody out here. I am what you need. You can always donate via PayPal. It's up in the chat section. But once I turn off the chat, I think that stuff disappears. So what I'll have to do is I'll have to there we go. I'll have to put it into the comment section when all is said and done. All right. So that's it for me. I'm what you need. It's been an hour 43, hour 44 minutes with you guys. If you guys have any other examples or any other things you want to currently talk about, Devin Haney has vacated all his titles at 140. He's now on 135. He's now moving to 140. Officially, he's now at 140, which means the belts open up. I believe Vasily Lomachenko and George Kambosos will be fighting each other. And I think they're fighting for the IBF title. I think that's what it is. It could be the WBO. It also opens up the door for the WBA. Now, I heard that Gervonta Tank Davis might be elevated to super champion or normal regular champion or whatever it is. But he's going to be the champion of the division. I don't think he'd be super champion. I think he should be a normal champion. And I believe when it comes to the WBO, I don't know if Kambosos is fighting for the WBO or if he's fighting Lomachenko for the IBF. It's one of them. But anyway, one of them is going to be opened up, and Shakur is right now the WBC champion, so I guess whoever else will be, fighting for the IBF spot or whatever, which could be very exciting. You know what I'm saying? It could be very exciting. Teofimo Lopez at 140 is not facing anybody. He's talking, but he doesn't really mean it. Devin Haney is going to be facing, of course, Regis Prograis in a couple days' time. Actually, he's going to be facing Regis Prograis in 9 days' time. So that's going to be exciting. And then we have Subriel Mateus. Hopefully he can get, a bigger name. We'll see. Depends on how the Regis Prograis Devin Haney fight goes, I guess. Also, we're hearing that Devin Haney might fight Keith Thurman. He's calling out Keith Thurman at least. Keith Thurman and Mario Barrios. So that's the two people that Devin Haney might actually face up at welterweight. So Devin Haney might move up to welterweight. Who knows? He's a big dude. We'll see. He is big. He's bigger than Regis. That don't mean nothing, but I'm just saying. So that's some of the news. What else is new? I don't know what's going on with Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. I heard they're going to be fighting, so that's good. Don't know what's happening with Deontay Wilder. If he's going to be taking on, I think he's taking on, who's Deontay Wilder taking on again? Guys, tell me who Deontay Wilder's taking on again. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember. Anthony Joshua's taking on, what's the guy's name? The guy that faced Tyson Fury, right? The left-handed guy. So Joshua's facing him. Wilder's facing who? I can't remember. Wilder's supposed to be facing somebody. I can't remember who it is. Jermaine Miller, he's supposed to be facing somebody as well. Oh, he's facing Daniel Dubois. So Miller's facing Dubois. Deontay Wilder's facing who? Who's Wilder facing? Who's Deontay Wilder facing? You guys know? Robert? No, not Robert Hernandez. He faced Robert Hernandez. Yeah, but who's he facing? Right, so Anthony Joshua's facing Otto Wallen. Oh yeah, Joseph Parker. So Wilder would be facing Joseph Parker. Okay. Right. Joseph Parker versus Wilder. Joshua versus Otto Wallen. Bivol facing Lyndon Arthur. Philip Hergovich is facing Mark De Mori. I don't know who they are. Daniel Dubois versus Jared Bender. Frank Sanchez is going to be facing Junior Fa. I don't know who Junior Fa is. I know who Frank Sanchez is. So yeah, that's what's up. Anyway, let me get out of here. What you need in the building, about to leave. I'm going to catch you guys later. It's been good talking with you guys. Peace. I'm out.